In a quiet town called Riverbend, there was a wide stretch of farmland at the edge of the neighborhood. The farm belonged to a man named Tom. He was in his 40s, strong, polite, and quiet. Most people in the town knew him as the man who minded his own business. He grew vegetables, kept chickens, and often helped his neighbors with tools or repairs. But lately, things in the neighborhood had started to change. The town had a strict homeowners association, and its head was a woman named Karen. She liked everything clean and perfect. She wanted all lawns trimmed, fences painted white, and no farm animals near the houses. Karen lived only 2 streets away from Tom's farm, and she always found a reason to complain about something. She said the rooster was too loud. She said the smell of soil was bad for her morning walks. She even said that Tom's tractor made the road look untidy, but Tom ignored her most of the time. He had more important things to do. However, what Karen did not know was that Tom's farm was not only a place for vegetables. The old barn behind the field was used by a special police unit for secret work. Tom had been helping them quietly for more than a year. He had once served in the police force before retiring early, and when his old friend Captain Miller asked for help, Tom agreed. The police used the barn for undercover operations. Inside it, they stored special equipment, radios, and files about illegal groups in the area. Everything was kept quiet, and no one in the neighborhood had any idea. It looked like a normal old barn, with hay bales stacked outside and a few broken tools lying near the door. Karen had no clue about any of this. All she saw was a messy piece of land that didn't fit her perfect idea of a neighborhood. She told the other HOA members that Tom was breaking the rules. She said he might be keeping illegal things on his farm. Without any proof, she convinced the group to act. One Saturday morning, Karen called for a meeting at her house. 4 members came: Paul, Nina, Derek, and Lucy. They sat around her long glass table, and Karen spoke in her usual firm voice. "We can't let him turn our clean town into a dump," she said. "I have called the town office many times, and they said he has special permission for his farm. But I don't believe it. I think he's hiding something." Paul looked nervous. "Are you sure we should get involved like that?" "He hasn't done anything to us." Karen crossed her arms. "He broke HOA rules. We are supposed to keep this place clean. I'm not going to sit here while he fills the air with chicken smell." "We'll go there and check for ourselves." Nina frowned. "You mean we just walk onto his land?" Karen smiled proudly. "We are the HOA. We have the right to inspect. If he is hiding something, we'll take pictures and report him to the authorities." They didn't know that the barn they were planning to inspect was being used that same weekend by the police for a planned operation. That morning, Captain Miller and his small team were inside the barn setting up. They had been tracking a group that was smuggling stolen electronics through the nearby woods. The farm was close to the route, and they were preparing to catch the smugglers in action. The police vans were parked behind the tree line where no one could see them. Tom helped move boxes and tested the radio connection. He knew it was a risky day. He made sure no one from the neighborhood could see what was going on. The police officers dressed in casual clothes, pretending to be farmhands. Everything was quiet and controlled until Karen's group decided to make their move. At around 10 in the morning, Karen and her inspection team got into 2 cars. She was in the front seat holding a clipboard as if she were leading an official visit. She had even printed fake papers to look serious. When they reached the dirt road leading to Tom's farm, she stopped her car and looked at the barn in the distance. "There it is," she said. "You see that old building? That's where he hides his stuff." Paul shifted uncomfortably. "Karen, maybe we should just talk to him first." "No," Karen said. "He'll only make excuses. We'll take pictures and then talk to him." They opened the gate without permission and walked toward the barn. The ground was soft from the morning rain, and their shoes got muddy, which annoyed Karen even more. As they got closer, they saw Tom near the tractor, pretending to work while keeping an eye on them. Tom felt his stomach tighten. He recognized Karen's angry walk from far away. She was coming straight toward the barn where the police were working inside. He quickly reached for his radio and whispered, "Captain, we have visitors, locals, HOA members." Inside the barn, Miller looked surprised. "Locals? What do they want?" Tom replied, "They think they're doing some kind of inspection." Miller sighed. "Keep them away from here. We can't risk exposure before tonight." Tom turned off the radio and walked toward the group. "Morning," he said calmly. "What brings you all here?" Karen raised her chin. "We are from the HOA. We received complaints about your property. We need to inspect it. Tom frowned slightly. You can't just walk into private land. You should have called. Karen stepped forward. We don't need your permission. You are under community rules. Tom stayed calm, but his voice was firm. My land is not part of your community area. You're trespassing. Paul looked uneasy, but Karen ignored him and pointed at the barn. What's in there? I saw people moving boxes. What are you hiding? Tom smiled slightly. Farm work, Karen. That's what people do on farms. She crossed her arms. I don't believe you. We'll take a look ourselves. Before Tom could stop them, Karen and Nina started walking toward the barn door. Tom followed fast, but the barn door suddenly opened from inside. Two men stepped out wearing work clothes, but their eyes were sharp. They were plainclothes officers. Everything all right here? One of them asked. Karen froze for a moment, then tried to act confident. We are conducting a neighborhood inspection. The officer looked at Tom, who gave a small nod. It's fine, Tom said quickly. They were just leaving. Karen frowned. No, we are not leaving. We'll look inside. Captain Miller himself appeared at the door now. He had a calm but powerful presence. He looked at Karen and said in a firm tone, Ma'am, this area is under official business. You need to step back. Karen blinked. Official business? What kind? Miller took out his badge and showed it. Police operation. Now please return to your vehicle. The color drained from Karen's face. Paul and Nina stood frozen. Tom looked at her and said quietly, I told you to call first. Karen didn't speak for a moment. Her eyes darted from the badge to the barn and then back to Tom. She realized she had made a big mistake. Without another word, she turned around and walked fast toward her car. Her group followed, too shocked to speak. As they left, Captain Miller turned to Tom. That was close. Let's hope she doesn't tell anyone. Tom nodded slowly. Knowing her, she will, but maybe next time, she'll think twice before raiding someone's farm. The sun was rising higher and the sound of distant engines came from the woods. The police operation was about to begin. But for now, Tom could only shake his head at how close the neighborhood patrol had come to ruining everything. The next morning in Riverbend was peaceful, but not for Karen. She had not slept well after what had happened at Tom's farm. The image of the police badge kept coming back to her mind. She could not believe that the old barn was part of a police operation. She felt both embarrassed and angry. She did not like being wrong, and she especially did not like being told to leave. When she sat down for breakfast, her husband Mark asked her why she looked so tense. She did not tell him the full truth. She just said that the HOA meeting had not gone well, but deep inside she was thinking of how to save her reputation. She was the head of the HOA, and everyone looked to her for answers. If people found out she had stormed into a police operation, it would ruin her image. Later that day, she called an emergency HOA meeting again. Paul, Nina, Derek, and Lucy came looking nervous. They still remembered how the police had shown up at the barn. Karen stood tall, pretending everything was under control. All right, she said. I looked into the matter. That farm is being used for some kind of government work, but that doesn't mean Tom can break HOA rules. We can still report him for violating property standards. Paul shook his head. Karen, please, just let it go. We almost got into real trouble yesterday. Karen's eyes narrowed. We did nothing wrong. They were the ones being secretive. If they had told us about their so-called operation, none of this would have happened. Nina said quietly, Maybe they couldn't tell us. It was police work. We should stay out of it. But Karen would not listen. Her pride was hurt, and she wanted to prove that she was right about Tom. She decided to find out what exactly was going on at that farm. She planned to gather information and show that Tom was breaking some kind of rule. At the same time, on the other side of town, Tom and Captain Miller were discussing what had happened. Inside the barn, all the police equipment had been packed away into boxes. The operation had been successful the night before. The smugglers had been caught trying to move stolen electronics through the woods. Everything had gone smoothly, but Karen's sudden visit had almost ruined it. Captain Miller rubbed his forehead. We were lucky. If she had stepped inside before we covered the radio, she would have seen everything. Next time, we need to make sure no locals come near this place. Tom agreed. She'll probably come back. Karen doesn't stop easily. You know how she is. Miller nodded. Then we'll move some of the equipment to another safe house for now. Keep things quiet here. If she comes again, act normal. We can't risk drawing attention." Tom watched as the police vans drove away, leaving only his tractor and a few crates of real farm supplies behind. The farm looked normal again, but he knew it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Karen was too curious to stay away. 3 days later, Tom was fixing a fence when he noticed a silver car parked far down the road. It had been there for almost an hour. He squinted and saw a familiar head of short blonde hair in the driver's seat. It was Karen. She was holding a pair of binoculars and watching his farm. Tom sighed and shook his head. He walked toward the edge of his field, pretending to inspect his crops. Karen quickly lowered the binoculars and drove off, pretending she had not been watching. That evening, Tom called Captain Miller. "She's watching the farm," he said. "She was sitting on the road again today." Miller's voice sounded calm but serious. "Keep your routine normal. If she does anything more, let me know. We'll handle it quietly." But Karen was not planning to stop. She had already written down notes about every person she had seen near Tom's farm in the past week. She even took pictures of the police vans from the day of the operation, not realizing how much danger she was putting herself in. She went to the local town office the next morning and tried to ask about Tom's land records. The clerk looked at her papers and frowned. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This property is under restricted documentation. We can't share details." Karen's eyes widened. "Restricted? Why?" "I'm not allowed to say," the clerk replied. Karen left the office with her curiosity burning stronger than before. She was sure now that something big was being hidden there. She convinced herself that Tom was using the police cover as an excuse. She told herself she was uncovering a scandal. Meanwhile, Captain Miller's team was busy cleaning up traces of the last operation. Some of the smugglers had mentioned a man in town who had been helping them, and Miller wanted to find that link. They believed someone was leaking routes and times to the criminals. That person could be anyone. When Tom heard about that, he was worried. "You think someone here in Riverbend is connected to those smugglers?" Miller nodded. "It's possible. Maybe that's why we need to stay alert. Your neighbor's curiosity could make things worse if she gets mixed in." That night, Tom sat on his porch watching the stars. He thought about the strange situation he was in. He wanted a peaceful life with his animals and crops, but now his farm had become a base for secret police work and the target of an angry HOA leader. He didn't want to make things worse, but he also couldn't risk the mission being exposed. The next morning, as he was feeding the chickens, he heard a sound coming from the barn. He thought it was Captain Miller, but when he opened the door, he saw a young boy holding a camera. The boy jumped when he saw Tom. "I'm sorry, sir. I was told to take pictures." "By who?" Tom asked. The boy hesitated. "Mrs. Karen. She said you were hiding something." Tom took the camera gently inside. "You shouldn't be here, son. Go home." He deleted the photos and handed the camera back. When the boy left, Tom walked inside the barn and checked everything. Luckily, all the police materials had been moved out. But now Karen had crossed a line. She had sent a child to spy. He picked up the phone and called Captain Miller again. "She sent someone onto the property today, a kid with a camera." Miller's tone grew hard. "All right. I'll talk to the local department. We can't let this go on. If she keeps interfering, she could get herself into real trouble." Later that afternoon, Karen got an unexpected visit. 2 plain-dressed officers came to her door. Mark opened it and called her over. When she saw them, her stomach turned. One of the officers showed his badge. "Ma'am, we're here to inform you that you've been interfering with an ongoing federal operation. You need to stop all contact with the property on Maple Road immediately," Karen tried to argue. "I was only checking the rules. He's part of the HOA community." The officer shook his head. "That farm is not under your jurisdiction. Any further interference will be treated as obstruction." Karen felt heat rise in her face. "Are you threatening me?" "No, ma'am," the officer said calmly. "We're warning you for your safety." After they left, Mark looked at her with disbelief. "What did you do this time?" Karen didn't answer. She walked to the window and stared outside. She couldn't believe that a simple farm had brought so much chaos. But instead of learning her lesson, she grew even more determined. She whispered to herself, "They're hiding something, and I'll find out what it is." At the farm, Tom was sitting on the porch again, unaware that Karen's curiosity had just turned into a full investigation of her own. He looked at the fading sunset and thought that the trouble was finally over. But deep inside, he knew it was only the beginning. The week after the warning from the police felt strange in Riverbend. The neighborhood seemed calm on the surface, but whispers spread from house to house. People started asking questions about Tom's farm. Some said the barn was full of secret government gear. Others said it was part of a military project. None of them knew the truth, but they liked to guess. Tom kept to his usual routine. He worked in the fields, fed the chickens, and fixed small things around the barn. The police had already removed most of their equipment, but they still used the place sometimes to meet quietly at night. Tom knew that Karen's curiosity was dangerous, but he hoped she would finally give up after being warned by the officers. However, Karen was not the kind of person who stopped easily. The warning had only made her more suspicious. She believed that the police were protecting Tom because they were part of something bigger. In her mind, she was sure that the farm hid secrets that no one wanted to talk about. One evening, she sat in her living room with her laptop open and papers spread across the table. She had printed old property maps, town records, and news clippings. Mark came in and looked tired. "You're still working on this?" he asked. Karen didn't look up. "I'm close to something. There's a reason they don't want me near that farm." Mark sighed. "Or maybe you're just making this bigger than it is. You already got a warning. You could get into trouble again." Karen waved her hand. "You'll see. When I find out the truth, everyone will thank me." That night, she found an old map showing a small road behind Tom's land leading to the woods. The note on the map said service route. She thought it might be an old path used by trucks. She decided she would check it herself. The next morning, Tom went to town to buy supplies. While he was away, Karen parked her car near the edge of the woods and started walking along the narrow path. The trees were tall and the ground was soft with fallen leaves. She carried her phone and a flashlight even though it was daytime. She wanted to take pictures for proof. After 10 minutes of walking, she reached the back of Tom's property. She saw the barn in the distance. There were tire marks on the ground from the police vans that had been there before. She took pictures of them, thinking she was gathering evidence. Inside the barn, however, 2 plainclothes officers were checking new equipment. They noticed movement near the trees and looked at each other. One of them whispered into his radio, "Movement at the backside. Possible civilian." At that moment, Tom's truck came down the road. He saw Karen's car parked near the woods and stopped immediately. His heart sank. He got out and started walking toward the trees. Karen had just stepped closer to the fence when Tom called out, "Karen, what are you doing here?" She jumped and turned around. "I was just walking," she said quickly, hiding her phone behind her back. Tom crossed his arms. "You're on private land again. Didn't the police tell you to stay away?" Karen's face turned red. "I'm not on your land yet. I'm just near it. And I have the right to walk here." Tom took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "You're not helping yourself. Go home." Karen glared at him. "You're hiding something." "I can tell. Normal farms don't have secret police operations. I'll find out what's really going on." Before Tom could answer, 2 men stepped out from behind the barn. They were the same officers who had seen her earlier. One of them said, "Ma'am, we need you to leave this area immediately." Karen's eyes widened. "You again? Are you following me?" The officer shook his head. "This area is restricted. You've been warned before. If you continue to interfere, we'll have to report it." Karen looked at Tom. "You think you can scare me with your friends?" "I know there's something going on here," Tom said quietly. "You're crossing a line, Karen. Please go home." For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue, but the serious expression on the officer's face made her step back. She turned around and walked fast toward the woods, still clutching her phone. When she got back to her car, she sat there for a long time. She felt angry but also uneasy. She had taken some pictures of the tire tracks and barn, and she decided to send them to someone she thought could help her. That night, she emailed the photos and a long message to a local news reporter named Ben. She told him that the police and a retired officer were hiding something on private property. She asked him to come and see for himself. Ben replied the next morning. Interesting tip. Let's meet tomorrow. We'll go check it out together. Karen smiled when she saw the message. She believed this was her chance to expose the truth. She didn't think about what might happen if she brought a reporter near a federal operation again. Meanwhile, Captain Miller was not happy. The officers had reported Karen's visit, and he knew this couldn't continue. He called Tom that morning. We may have to move the remaining files today. I don't like the attention you're getting, Tom agreed. She's not going to stop. I saw her taking pictures. We need to finish this soon. By the next day, Karen and Ben met at a small coffee shop near the highway. Ben was a tall man with short dark hair and a calm voice. He worked for a local online paper. So tell me everything, he said. Karen explained how she had seen vans, men in uniforms, and a barn full of secret things. She said she believed Tom was part of something strange. Ben listened carefully, but he wasn't sure if she was right. Still, he thought it could make an interesting story if there was any truth to it. They drove toward the farm in Ben's car around noon. Karen guided him through the side road and pointed to the barn. There it is. That's the place. Ben took out his camera with a long lens and started taking photos from a distance. Tom was working near the tractor and saw the glint of the camera lens. He felt a chill go down his spine. He knew it wasn't just Karen this time. He walked toward them quickly, waving his hand. Hey, you can't take pictures here. This is private land. Ben raised his voice, trying to sound calm. We're just taking pictures from the road. It's public property. Tom stepped closer. Not when you point your camera at my barn. At that moment, Captain Miller appeared from behind the barn again, his expression serious. He had arrived minutes before to pick up the last box of evidence. He saw the camera inside. This is not good, he muttered. Miller walked straight toward them. Sir, I need you to stop taking pictures. You're interfering with official work. Ben frowned. Official work? Are you police? Miller showed his badge again. Yes, and this property is under a restricted federal operation. Delete those pictures now, Karen gasped. I knew it. There is something secret here. Miller looked at her. Ma'am, you have already been warned once. This is your final warning. Ben hesitated but slowly deleted the photos. He looked at Karen. You didn't tell me it was a police operation, Karen said quickly. I didn't know for sure. I just wanted to find out the truth. Tom spoke quietly but firmly. The truth is that you almost exposed something important. You don't understand how dangerous this is, Miller added. You're lucky we were here before you caused more problems. This operation involves people who won't think twice before taking revenge. If they saw you two snooping, you'd be in real danger. Karen felt her mouth go dry. She had not thought about danger before. She had only wanted to prove she was right. Miller turned to Ben. This conversation stays between us. You print anything and you'll be facing serious legal issues. Ben nodded quickly. Understood. Karen and Ben left in silence. On the way back, Karen looked out the window, her hands shaking slightly. For the first time, she felt fear instead of pride. At the farm, Tom watched their car disappear. He turned to Miller and said, That's the second time she almost ruined everything. Miller nodded. If this continues, we'll have to relocate for good. I'll handle it. But neither of them knew that someone else had noticed the commotion that day. A black van had been parked near the far end of the road. And a man inside had taken pictures too, not of the farm, but of Karen and Ben. He smiled coldly and said to himself, Looks like someone's getting too close. The next few days in Riverbend were quiet, but the calm was only on the surface. Beneath that peace, something dangerous had started to move. The black van that had been watching from the end of the road did not belong to any local resident. Inside it were two men who were not from Riverbend at all. They were part of the smuggling group that Captain Miller's team had been tracking for months. The smugglers had lost part of their goods when the police operation caught their partners in the woods. Now they wanted revenge, and they were looking for whoever had helped the police. The man sitting in the passenger seat was tall and wore dark glasses. His name was Rico. He held a small camera and looked through the photos he had taken. They showed Tom, Captain Miller, Karen, and Ben near the barn. He smiled in a cold way. Looks like we found our friend, he said. This farmer has been working with the cops. The driver, a quiet man named Leo, nodded. What do we do about it? Rico replied, we wait. Let's find out who else knows. Then we make sure they all stay quiet. That same morning, Tom was fixing the water pipes near his field when Captain Miller arrived in his car. He looked tired and serious. Tom, we have a problem, he said. Our suspects are still out there. They might be looking for revenge. Stay alert and don't leave the farm alone. Tom nodded. I'll keep an eye open. Do you think they know about this place? Not yet, Miller said. But if they saw anything last week, they could start connecting things. Keep the lights off at night and call me if you see anything strange. Later that afternoon, Karen was at home, sitting on her porch with a worried face. She had barely spoken since the day she went to the farm with Ben. She had told no one about the warning she received from Captain Miller, but she could not stop thinking about his words. The mention of danger had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Mark came outside with 2 cups of tea. You've been quiet lately, he said gently. That's not like you, Karen sighed. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have gone there again. It's not just some farm business. There's something serious happening and I almost got caught in it. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. Then stay away from it now. Let the police handle it. Karen nodded slowly. She wanted to believe it was over, but her instincts told her that something bad was still around the corner. Meanwhile, at the edge of town, Rico and Leo parked the van near the small store where Karen often shopped. They stayed hidden and watched as she walked out with groceries. Rico leaned back in his seat. That's the lady who was at the farm. She might know something, he said. Leo frowned. You sure we should follow her? What if she talks to the police? Rico smirked. That's exactly what I want to find out. They followed her car from a distance, keeping the van far enough not to draw attention. Karen noticed nothing unusual as she drove home. When she pulled into her driveway, the van continued down the street and parked near the corner. The men watched her house for a while, making notes. Inside, Karen felt uneasy again. The sense that someone was watching her had returned. She locked all the doors and closed the curtains. Mark noticed her nervousness. What's wrong? He asked. I don't know, Karen whispered. It feels like someone's watching us. Mark went outside and looked around, but he saw nothing except a few cars and a man walking his dog. He went back inside and said, There's no one out there. But the van was still parked near the corner, hidden behind a large tree. That evening, Tom received a call from Captain Miller. We picked up some chatter, Miller said. 2 of the suspects may have been seen near Riverbend. Keep your eyes open tonight. Tom looked out across the dark field. Understood. I'll keep watch. He grabbed his flashlight and checked the barn's doors and windows. Everything was locked. The air was cool and the moonlight touched the fields gently. The farm was quiet except for the distant sound of frogs near the stream. At the same time, Rico and Leo decided to move closer. They parked their van near an old shed and walked quietly through the trees toward the back of Tom's farm. They wore dark clothes and carried small bags with tools. They planned to check if the police were still using the barn. As they got near the fence, Leo whispered, You sure this is the place? Rico nodded. That's the barn from the photo. Let's take a look. Inside the barn, Tom had placed a small security camera connected to his tablet. He saw 2 shadows moving near the back fence. His heart began to pound. He quickly grabbed his phone and called Captain Miller. 2 men on the north fence, Tom whispered. Stay inside, Miller said firmly. We're on the way. Tom turned off the lights and waited. He watched through the window as the 2 men moved closer, trying to break the lock on the side door of the barn. Meanwhile, across the street, Karen looked out her window and saw strange lights near Tom's field. Her fear grew stronger. She thought about ignoring it, but something inside told her she couldn't just sit quietly. She called the local police line. This is Karen from Maple Street, she said quickly. I think there are intruders on the farm near my house. The officer on the other end assured her that a patrol was already on the way. Minutes later, Captain Miller and his team arrived silently from the opposite side of the road. They moved quickly through the shadows surrounding the barn. The 2 intruders didn't see them coming. Rico had just opened the side door when Miller shouted, Police! Hands where we can see them. Both men froze. Leo dropped the tool he was holding. Rico tried to run but was caught by another officer near the fence. Within seconds, they were both on the ground, handcuffed. Tom came out from the barn as the lights from the police cars flashed across the field. Miller gave him a nod. Good work calling us fast. They were the ones we missed in the last operation. Tom exhaled slowly. So it's finally over? For now, Miller said. But we'll need to take them to headquarters. They might have information about others still out there. As the officers led the two men to the cars, Karen stood on her porch, watching the flashing lights. Mark came beside her. You called the police? He asked. Karen nodded. Yes. I saw something and thought it was the right thing to do this time. Mark smiled softly. You did the right thing. Maybe now it's really over. But the next morning, Karen got a call from Captain Miller himself. Mrs. Karen, he said politely. We caught two men last night thanks to your call. They were dangerous people. You might have saved lives. Karen was speechless. For the first time, she felt proud for the right reason. I'm just glad I could help, she said quietly. Miller continued. We'll keep a patrol near the farm for a few days to be safe. You and your neighbors should stay alert, and thank you for cooperating this time. When the call ended, Karen sat down and thought about everything that had happened. She realized how her stubbornness had almost caused real trouble before, but now she had helped instead of hurting. At the farm, Tom worked in the garden while the police finished their reports. Captain Miller shook his hand before leaving. You did well, Tom. Without your quick call, they might have escaped. Tom smiled faintly. I just hope the neighborhood can go back to normal now. Miller nodded. It will. But I think you and your neighbor both learned something this week. As the police cars drove away, Tom looked toward the road where Karen's house stood. For the first time in many weeks, he didn't feel angry toward her. She had caused problems, yes, but in the end, she had also helped stop something dangerous. The sun rose slowly over Riverbend, painting the fields in gold. The farm was peaceful again. Tom went back to his work, and Karen finally felt the heavy weight of guilt lift from her heart. But none of them knew that one last secret from the captured men would soon bring another wave of surprise to their quiet town. The morning sun rose over the small town, spreading golden light across the fields and rooftops. Birds chirped softly, and the gentle wind carried the smell of fresh hay from Ravi's farm. It looked peaceful, but everyone in town knew that what had happened the night before was something no one would ever forget. The incident had shaken both the HOA community and the police department. The farm that once seemed simple had become the center of a big story. Ravi stood near the edge of his field, looking at the damage. The fence was broken, tire marks cut across the dirt, and one of his sheds still had yellow police tape wrapped around it. His cows were safe, but they looked nervous. His dog Bruno stayed close to him, growling softly whenever a car passed. Ravi felt tired, but his heart was calm. He had done nothing wrong, and now the truth was finally coming out. Officer Raj parked his jeep near the gate and walked toward Ravi. He looked serious but calm. Morning, Ravi, he said. How are you holding up? Ravi gave a small smile. I am fine. Just cleaning up a mess I didn't make, Raj nodded. That's going to change soon. The police report is done, and the people from the HOA will face the consequences. The chief himself wants to talk to you later today. You helped us without even realizing it. Ravi laughed softly. I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted peace on my land. Raj looked around the farm. Sometimes peace finds trouble before trouble finds peace. But you handled it well. Meanwhile, in the HOA office, Karen sat behind her desk, her face pale and her hands shaking. The police had already been there that morning. They had shown her papers and asked questions. Her own neighbors were avoiding her now. The proud, bossy woman who used to walk around giving orders was now silent. She realized she had made a big mistake by sending people to the farm. Her assistant, Mira, entered quietly. Madam, the police said they will hold a community meeting today. Everyone must attend. Karen nodded slowly. Yes, I know. I will be there. Mira looked worried. You think they will forgive you? Karen sighed. I don't know. I only wanted things to look proper. I didn't know there was a police operation. Later that afternoon, the community gathered in the small town hall. The place was full of people. Farmers, shop owners, families, and police officers filled the chairs. Ravi sat in the front row with Raj beside him. Karen sat near the back, looking down, her pride gone. The police chief stood at the front and spoke in a clear voice. Last night, members of the HOA patrol entered private land without permission. They interfered with an ongoing police operation, meant to capture a group involved in illegal dealings. Because of their actions, one suspect escaped, but we managed to capture two others later. Thankfully, no one was hurt. However, the HOA members will face charges for breaking property laws. Murmurs filled the hall. Some people looked angry, others shocked. The chief raised his hand to quiet them. But there's more. Thanks to the quick response from Ravi here, we recovered key evidence from the farm. That evidence helped us track the main suspect. So while the HOA caused trouble, Ravi's farm played a big role in solving the case. Everyone turned to look at Ravi. He stood up slowly, feeling both proud and shy. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. "I love my land and I don't like people walking in without asking. I didn't know it was a police matter, but I am glad I helped." The crowd clapped and Raj smiled. "You did more than help, Ravi. You kept your calm and followed the right way." The chief turned toward Karen. "As for you, Mrs. Karen, you will have to face the legal process for trespassing and obstruction. We hope this serves as a lesson to everyone about respecting private property and not letting power go to your head." Karen stood up, tears in her eyes. "I understand. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting the neighborhood, but I crossed a line. I apologize to everyone, especially to Ravi." The hall became quiet again. Ravi looked at her and nodded. "I accept your apology. I just hope this never happens to anyone else." After the meeting ended, people came to talk to Ravi. Many of them praised his patience and calm behavior. Some of them even offered to help him fix his fence and shed. For the first time in months, Ravi felt that the town was on his side. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, Raj visited the farm again. He carried a small folder and handed it to Ravi. "This is from the department. It's a letter of thanks and a small reward for your cooperation." Ravi opened it and smiled. "I didn't expect anything like this," Raj grinned. "Sometimes good people get recognized. You earned it." As they talked, a few police trucks passed on the road, carrying away the last pieces of equipment from the operation. The mission was officially over. The field that had once been filled with tension now looked peaceful again. The soil was quiet and the air felt lighter. That night, Ravi sat on his porch with a cup of tea. The stars were bright and Bruno slept near his feet. He thought about how fast things had changed. A week ago, he had worried about fences and rude neighbors. Now he had faced a raid, helped the police, and even received a letter of thanks. Life had tested him, but he had stayed true to himself. Across town, Karen sat in her house alone. She had stepped down from her HOA position, and her reputation was gone. But deep inside, she knew she needed this lesson. She realized that rules were meant to protect, not control. She decided that once her legal trouble ended, she would try to fix what she had broken, not with words, but with actions. A few days later, she visited Ravi's farm again, this time politely and with respect. She brought a small box of homemade bread as a peace offering. Ravi was surprised but welcomed her. They talked for a while, and though the air was still awkward, there was a new understanding between them. The days passed and the town slowly forgot the chaos of the raid. The fields grew green again and the fences stood tall. Ravi continued his simple life, tending his crops and helping his neighbors when they needed it. Raj visited often and the two became good friends. Months later, a small article appeared in the local newspaper. It told the story of the farm incident and how a farmer's patience and courage helped solve a case and teach a town a lesson about respect and cooperation. When Ravi read the article, he smiled. He didn't see himself as a hero, but he was glad the truth was known. The farm was once again quiet and safe, and that was all he ever wanted. And so, the story of the HOA raid became a lesson for the whole community. That pride can cause trouble, but honesty and calmness can fix even the biggest mistakes. Ravi had turned an unwanted raid into something meaningful, proving that good hearts always find peace, even in the middle of chaos. The wind moved gently through the crops. The stars shone bright above and the farm stood tall, silent, strong and at peace once more.